Hold on, we recording? Hold on, wait. I'm not ready yet. Let me give me some wine. Okay, we ready? 3, 2, 1, let's go. Hello and welcome. Cheers to each and every one of you playing this episode. Don't forget to stay in the know, to look out for our social media posts on Facebook and Instagram. The links are in the episode notes. Okay, so I have a few things that I want to talk about and just get your opinion on.
Okay.
I think the first thing is, how do you deal with the person, or specifically, I'm going to say a spouse when it comes to relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with the person who, or not, I ain't going to say deal, how do you deal with the person who lacks intellect? Like, they can't carry a conversation, or if they do have conversation, it's not really meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
They may talk about stuff, but when they do talk about things, it's not really, intellectual conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So how does two people that have different sides of that, can they coexist in a relationship?
Well, it really all depends on the relationship. I mean, if you think about it this way. So, if you're dating somebody, you should have known from the beginning that they didn't have the intellect that you needed to keep you mentally stimulated.
Right.
And remember, physical only goes so far. So if you don't have any mental, emotional stimulation, then what happens is that you become tired of this person. You know what I mean? Where the physicality is just like, okay, you're attractive, cool. Mm-hmm. What else you got?
Right.
And at the end of the day, I say this: you either elevate or you exit.
What do you mean when you say elevate? Like elevate?
So in a relationship, think about it. Two people, if you got a person intellectually, they're on two different levels.
Right.
There's the point where if you feel like the relationship is worth it, right? Then that person you could expose them to different things. You know what I mean? To try to build that intellect through conversation, through these kind of things. But at the end of the day, if you love the person and they not that smart, then you just got to go talk to somebody else.
Okay.
If you don't want to walk away from the situation,
right?
And if you feel like the relationship is more important than the conversation, mm-hmm. then you just accept what this person is. You could challenge them with stuff. I mean, you could expose them to things to build their mind. But at the same time, if somebody wants to build their mind, if they're not, is it a matter of they're ignorant or they're not smart?
I would say ignorance.
Also, ignorance.
Yeah.
That's a little different. If a person
I feel like with a person, and I do agree that it is different, because if you have a person that's not smart versus a person who's ignorant,
right.
If you try to challenge them because they have lack of that knowledge, they're not going to be able to really grasp, what you're doing when you try to challenge them. Versus the person who's smart, it's like, okay, I can see what they're doing, how they're trying to do it, and it's a choice at that point whether they want to or not.
Right.
So that's
right.
So I guess I would say dealing with a person who is ignorant in that area. Okay. So it's like when you try to challenge them, or if you try to bring certain things up and it's like they missed it and go over their head. How do you deal with that? Or can you even really deal with that? I mean, we all grow in some way,
right?
Some sort of intellect.
You either grow or go. I know I'm like rhyming all day and doing all these little sayings, but you either grow or go. So it's like, if you all are not growing together, mm-hmm. then you're not growing. Right. And with trees, if they don't grow, they start dying.
Right.
So you have to make a decision, just like they have to make a decision. You have to decide: is this juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
Is it worth dealing with the constant intellectual battles, or the constant ignorant battles, the back and forth, or the lack of back and forth, whatever cases? Is this worth this? Because if you're not growing, there's a piece of you that is dying somewhere.
You know what you remind me of when you say that? Have you ever seen Girlfriends?
Yeah.
Years
ago.
It's a episode on there where Joe's like, if you're not growing, you're dying. But in so many words, that's true, because it's like we're growing in age, and as you get older, the intent is to get wiser.
Right.
So I feel like when it comes to intellect, of course you may lack in some areas, mm-hmm. but with time, and if you try, but I feel like a person can learn how to be more intellect too, like just having certain conversations. or getting around certain people who have, you know what I'm saying, like a
the
sense
other,
of
well,
better conversations.
I mean, the other question is how, you know, you have to define what you mean as intellectual. Because I know people who are not necessarily the most book smart people. They're not the sharpest tack in the box, but they're street smart. But they have common sense, or their opinions are very straightforward, and those simple opinions are the very things that you may need to hear. You know, somebody like, because you have people who are really intellectual, and some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life, because you overthink everything, and you think everything is everything, and you connect all these different dots, and then it takes that one person who's not as intellectual maybe, but they look at it from a simple perspective, like, yeah, but why not this? And then you freak out because you're like, well no, because it's like, at the end of the day, it is exactly that. But it causes that cognitive dissonance. You know, intellectual people who think a lot, cognitive dissonance is a big issue for them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so you sell them something very simple. What?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
No, it can't be that. No, it can't be. I mean, I don't know, but it's a chair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so it, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what is the cause of the breakdown in conversation? Is it because a person's not smart? They're just not intellectually smart? That's peanuts in comparison to the greater good of the relationship.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you need to talk to somebody deep about deep conversations, go get you some friends. Go get some intellectual friends. You know what I mean? The reality is, if you want to talk about the dark side of the moon, or the deep concepts of the systematic, whatever, with this, that, and their person, they're just not into that. You don't need to force them to try to think like you think or do, or, you know, people can be like, all right, cool,
Yeah.
I support you, or I don't support you. I agree, or I disagree.
Right.
If you want to have that, you know.
It is like a different side of intellect, because one person may see intellect as this thing, and then another person sees it as this.
Right.
So I definitely agree with that. And I think too, like you said, getting around people who can challenge, you know. To me, I think, what is your definition of intellect?
Effective, productive thinking. So I look at intellect as effective, productive thinking.
Okay.
So just because you know a lot of facts, just because you know a lot of information, does not make you intellectual, to me, in my opinion.
I agree.
Because I know people who know all kinds of information, and I know people who know a whole bunch of information, and it equates to a whole lot of nothing.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
I know people who don't have a lot of information, but the way they can understand concepts, to me, makes them far more intellectual than an intellectual.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's usually, I put it like this, some of the worst and most ridiculous things that have ever happened in history have been done by intellectuals, not book intellectuals, and not individuals who are simple common sense thinkers.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think for me, intellect is like simple. I think it's common sense in so many words, but on different levels. I think that if you have an opinion about something, you know, you can stand on your opinion. Because I think sometimes, like you said, I think people overthink, you know, being able to carry a good conversation. And because you can do that, they're like, oh, I'm just so intellectual, I'm just so smart. But it's like, no, like, that's not how it works. You can talk about what you can talk about what you want to talk about all the time, but you're not really saying a bunch of anything.
Well, you have to understand, most people's opinions are not their own anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say that 70% of the people who are intellectuals are simply repeating something they heard somebody who actually thinks they heard it somewhere. Yeah. They heard some person who is an intellectual actually said it. They're like, oh wow, that makes sense. So then they start saying it. And that's how great misconceptions happen throughout the world. You know what I mean? Somebody who sounds smart said something, and because you don't know, you just repeat it. You grab onto it, and so then they go in every conversation, they go in every debate, they go in there. That's why you hear a lot of times, especially with the political stuff, you hear the right and the left, and all these people in the communities are coming out and they're stating, oh yeah, well, da-da-da-da, and all you're doing is repeating talking points that you heard from your favorite senator, or you heard the talking points from your latest this. Right. You know, and so to me, intellectual being intellectual or being an intellectual is a matter of, are you thinking effectively and productively?
And are these your thoughts?
And are these your thoughts, right? And I'm not saying we are all influenced by something.
Right.
I know that some of my opinions are very, very highly influenced by people that I revere, that I've looked to,
right.
But then I've dug up beyond them to see, do I validate that opinion based off of my own digging or my own information, or, you know, I really had to start saying, like, look, I have not verified all the information, but I heard this and it makes sense,
right?
You know, and so, like I said, people don't think anymore. So when you talk about an intellectual, to me, an intellectual is somebody who is just an effective, productive thinker. So it doesn't matter how book smart you are. You know, like I said, I've met kids on the street, man, working with the youth programs and stuff. Some of the sharpest kids you'll ever meet, but they couldn't tell you any of the latest facts or book things. But I tell you right now, they can read people. I can tell you right now, they can identify problems easily. They can find solutions easily, you know, in some of the worst situations where everybody's chaotic.
Right.
So I think being an intellectual is really subjective, you know, to me.
And I think I agree with what you said too about just everybody's thinking is altered by something. I just finished a research course in my semester, and I did an essay about fake news. And I don't know, it really, to know how much fake news is out there that is being put out as real news, it makes you start thinking. It makes you start thinking about what our own, for me, it made me start thinking about the things that I believe in, or the things that I know to be true, and start looking into those things to say, is this really true? Because just because it's being presented in front of me doesn't mean that it's true. And I can honestly say, even with my semester, I was like, I'm kind of struggling in this, but once I got like interested in what I was looking for and just finding that information, it helped me to see so many things differently. Like, even I had an essay about finding your roots, and I watched this episode with Maya Rudolph and Damon Wayans, and just hearing the stories of like their great like their ancestors, like great granddad and stuff like that, just hearing like 7-year-olds and 6-year-olds being sold into slavery, and just thinking like, wow, like it makes you wonder, like, who am I? And I think, or you know, where do I come from? And I think too that comes back to the intellectual, because it's like it helps you understand who you are once you realize, you know, what do I think and what is my opinion. And I think just that whole fake news story, reading and researching that, I don't know, I look at so many things different now, because I'm like, geez, you have to really stop and think, because the way they put stuff out here.
Propaganda is real. There was a quote years ago, is that he who controls the media controls the masses. And you have to understand is that the media has been a tool to manipulate the masses for centuries. I mean, you're talking about for years, you know, centuries and generations, that the media of the time, whichever media it was, you know, there's power, obviously, power influences and fear influences, because back in the archaic days, you have more, you know, power and class and fear that led to the control. But as time progressed, it still was the same thing. So-and-so said this through this and this medium, and you got your court, you know, caller or whatever case is, you got your street caller. The information passed through whatever medium is the medium at the time has been used for the manipulation of the people. You know,
and it's so crazy because they have so many different tactics.
Correct. I'll tell you a good one, and this is controversial. This is not a statement affirming or denying or whatever case is this particular thing, but with the recent passing of the same-sex bill through the House and Senate and stuff, and now it's going to Biden's desk, and very likely he'll sign it.
Right.
Well, what's interesting about it, you talk about a media tactic, right? So originally when it was first brought up, you know, it was facing a lot of pushback because of the religious side of it, because it was like, okay, you're protecting discrimination from same-sex marriages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then the pushback was what? The pushback was, what about religious freedom? So you're saying that what about people who, you know, maybe churches don't want to marry same-sex couples.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to stop you from doing your thing, but we also don't have to support it. So now you're infringing on our right. And it was a big thing about that, right? But what I found interesting, regardless of where you stand on the issue, what I found interesting is that did you see what was added to the bill?
Yeah, I saw your thing about it when they add the interracial.
Interracial,
I did
right.
see it, yeah.
But yeah, so I brought it up on the podcast. That's a real interesting media tactic. They added interracial to it.
Yep.
So now, because it wasn't getting through as smooth, it was facing some pushback and almost was like in jeopardy. Now they added interracial to it out of nowhere. Interracial marriage ain't been a problem since 1905.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Anybody talked about interracial marriage? Where did that even come from?
But it's crazy because I'm pretty sure like a lot of people don't even see that.
Right.
Because a lot of times we just see, what's in front of us and we don't really, look too in depth to it. But it's like when you add stuff like that, you're changing.
Right, you're changing the narrative, the mindset. Yeah. I mean, people read it now. I saw an article, and I forget if I mentioned it on the podcast, but I saw an article that's when it was originally getting voted on, and the senator voted against it. I saw an article that said, so-and-so senator votes against interracial marriage bill. And it was like, well, wait,
what?
It was not an interracial marriage bill.
Right.
It's a same-sex marriage bill. But that was tagged on. So now your hand is forced
to look at it.
Right. Now you're forced to say, oh, well, it figures they're a racist, And being labeled a racist is, as I mentioned, the last thing you want to be is racist.
Right.
So now it's like, if I put that in there, now it's like, oh, who would go against this? And there's probably more in the bill. Like my boy was saying, like there's probably more in the bill that we don't even know that is totally off kilter. It's very possible. Like same thing with like they had the Inflation Reduction Act that got passed. It was like $4 trillion, and the bill, 90% of it had nothing to do with inflation.
Yeah.
It was like green energy and stuff. Yeah, but they
and then
labeled
when you look at it, it's like, oh, okay,
right.
This is helping us.
Right. This looks good.
No.
Yeah, this sounds great.
No.
Inflation reduction, of course.
Right.
I want to
find that.
Right. Of course, I want to reduce inflation. Sure, but you don't actually read the bill. Inflation reduction is only page 1, subsection 1. The rest of it is all slush fund and everything else. So yeah, but I agree with you. The media and these little tactics have been used to manipulate people. It's the same thing that happened in Germany right before the Holocaust. It's the same thing that's happened in China.
I was just about to say, it's so crazy because it dates back so far. And it's like now you think about the technology we have, the way that the media has upgraded, if you want to say, So like it's now easier to get it worldwide.
Oh yeah.
And to put it in everybody's faces. And then when you see it so many times, you're thinking like this has to be true.
Right,
or
of course.
when you hear it on like the news or something, you're like, this has to be. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how our brains works. But until you actually look at it and say, okay, well maybe not. But yeah, I don't know. I really appreciate that class because I was like, dang, it makes me look at a lot of things differently.
There's a famous quote that's lesser known, and it was if you're gonna tell a lie, make it big, and then say it over and over and over and over again, and say it. And if you say it enough time, I'm paraphrasing, and if you say it enough time, the people will believe it. You know who said that?
No.
Hitler. Yep. And so when you think about that, you think about this like, but yeah, Hitler said that, and you obviously see where that went. I'll tell you a fun fact. Did you know that? So here in America, we teach about German propaganda. We teach about the German propaganda and how it was used to obviously prep the people to commit the Holocaust. What's interesting about it is, from my understanding in Germany, they actually teach American propaganda. They teach the opposite.
Of course they do.
Right, they teach American propaganda and the American way of life and the American dream and all that kind of stuff, and how that's been used to manipulate the people. And so I find that interesting. China's the same way. I mean, you figure today, there are people in China who still look at like Mao Zedong. I don't know if you're familiar with Mao, but Mao was one of the leaders who was part of that whole communist movement, who created like the red, like star, red state, all kind of stuff. You know, that whole red China thing. Yeah, he was the red China guy. Well, what's interesting about it is, give or take, actually, there's details in there, but what's interesting about him is that people don't talk about him a lot. People focus more on like Hitler or Stalin and Lenin and all these other folks, and they he gets kind of overlooked a little bit sometimes with Mao, because Mao, he did the Great Leap Forward. Okay. And people jumped on board for it. They were like, yeah, we need to move China forward, progression, and, moving sounds good. This sounds like a great idea. Right. But in the process of the Great Leap Forward, he systematically starved 48 million people to death, and slaughtered villages, and to the point where they were talking about, an eyewitness said that people were in villages, people were in villages eating belts.
Like leather belts?
Yeah, like eating like belts and like whatever they could. Wow. Because they like I said, he systematically starved 40 plus million people, and not including killed another 10 million or whatever, just through people who rose up against him, or all that kind of stuff. But to this day, there are people who still look at him as a hero for pushing China forward, for the Great Leap Forward, and so. That's how it works. You're gonna have a group that jumps on because it sounds good, feels good. The band, they roll with it. It's like, this is a great idea, and then you're gonna have people who disagree, but they're silent about it, and that's the dangerous one.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is relevant to this day with a lot of stuff that's going on. You have a lot of people that have their own opinion, but they don't say anything because they don't want to be. I wouldn't say attacked, but seen differently.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you lose. Think about it. For example, like if you're, and this is, if you're, let's look at the black community. Like you look at the black community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of like infighting between the black community, and people could argue systematic and everything, and slavery, and we could go through all these different reasons as why, but it doesn't change the fact that. Honestly, I think one of the biggest. So, for example, you have a kid in the hood who doesn't want to be a gangster. He doesn't want to be hood, or doesn't want to be street. Who wants to read and likes books and likes, opera or whatever, likes anime, whatever the case is, right? And he wants to speak proper. But what happens? He gets exiled by his community. He gets put to the side and told that he's weird, and told that he wants to be white, and told that he acts white, talks white, and so you're saying that, which the reality is that regardless of how he talks and acts, if going by your logic that it don't matter what you do, you still a Negro, right? So you're saying that only applies to you and not to him, because at the same time, if it's the case where it don't matter what he does, he's still a Negro, but then you're telling him he's not, because he does all these things that white people do. Right, that white people do. Now you're there's this infighting in there, and so you have this this split, and so you look at it from a perspective like, if you're black and say you don't vote Democrat. I mean, I know people who black people who, if you don't vote Democrat, then you're just. You're the worst human beings in the world. You're one of them, and it's like, I didn't say who I was voting for. I just said I just don't think that this is the best decision in this situation. Right. Well, it doesn't matter, and it's like when you're all or nothing, when you're saying that only do this all the time, no matter what, that's dangerous. Yeah. Because that's how you get totalitarianism. That's how you get, Holocaust. Because you say all or nothing. And it goes same thing with conservatives. It goes same thing with, if you're on the right and you say, okay, I'm a conservative, and if you default from the norm, you're looked at as different. Everybody has these. Anyway, everybody just thinks that, you have to adhere to the cultural acceptance or the cultural wave, or else you got to go. You're dangerous. Yep. And because that's the mindset that leads to genocide.
Yep.
You know, so.
And I think too, something that I'm struggling with when it comes to our culture is, I don't know, I haven't really put too much thought into it up until like this year. And it's because it's like, it's the stance of where women stand, right? I was watching a video the other day, and it talked about like basically the roles of a black woman.
Yeah.
And you know how they talk about, oh, you know, the black woman, she's strong and she's independent and she's this and she's that. And then you have the other side where it's like you can be all of that, but you know, you won't have these things if you're not this, if you're not that. And I think now, 2022, we have a lot of young black women, or just, I would say black women in general. You have a lot of black women who are just like, I'm independent, I don't need nobody, or I don't need a man.
Right.
And it's just like, I don't know, even with like the music, like some of the music you listen to, it's just like, what? But the women that are singing it, they got men.
Right.
Or they have families, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't know, when I hear stuff like that, I'm just like, what is wrong with y'all? Like, at the end of the day, no. But then you have your typical average everyday woman who goes by that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, I can do it by myself. I'm independent. I'm this and I'm that. And I don't know. Even with like my research paper, I did a paper on women's rights. And I started digging into just like the feminism movement and just the
That's
movement.
an interesting read, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, this research class has really changed my life. But it just gives you so many, like, you look at it, what it stood for then, and you look at what it stands for now. Not the same thing. And I don't know. That's why I said,
the term feminism has been hijacked.
Yes. And that's why I said I think up until this point, my view changed because I got that information. And when you see it now, it's just like, no, this is not feminism.
Right.
This is not what this was created to be.
Right.
I don't know.
This is misandry. So what's interesting, I agree with you. I think that this is why it's so important to educate yourselves and, you know, information and you know, digging into not getting caught up in what the cultural wave is and doing your own research and reading your own books and doing your own digging.
Right.
You know, because if you actually looked at the thing that you're being told not to look at or just accept, then you find out, wait a minute, this is actually exactly what I think it is, you know, or this isn't what I think it is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I've had to do that myself when it came to all kinds of different positions, and when it came to either whether it be political or cultural or whether it be relationships, whatever the case is. A lot of times, you know, we deceive ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we go for what's comfortable or what we're used to, you know. Yeah. Instead of confronting the realities that we don't know what's going on for real.
We don't.
We assume we know.
Yeah.
You know, because this is how it's always done, or this is how they've always said, or this is what my mama always did.
Yeah.
Okay. The reality is that, you know, and I live by this principle, is that yesterday was yesterday.
Yeah.
Today is today. You know, and I'm not saying that history can't have a direct impact on how you process things in the future. I'm not saying that trauma can't impact how you think and how you respond to certain things. But at the end of the day, every day you get a chance and a choice.
Yeah.
You wake up with a new chance to live, and you have a choice on how you're going to live and how you're going to use the life you've been given, the gift that you've been given. So when you find yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, I could process this situation through the lens of history. I could process the situation through the lens of what my mama did, or what my daddy said, or what the Democrats say, or what my favorite conservative political person says. I could process this situation through the lens of everybody else, or
I can decide how I feel about it.
I can make a decision on how I feel about it. And I can make a choice based on how I feel about it. Honestly and purely. It's the lost art of critical thinking and objectivity. You know what I'm saying? Well, we don't have that. That's what's wrong with society now. Don't nobody think. We don't want to think because thinking is hard. Thinking is challenging. Thinking makes us uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Digging, research. You may find out that something you have believed your entire life is false.
It's like, it makes me think of a story. I think it's like a general story, but it's about a lady. I think it came on like a holiday ad. You know how they do like a little short snippets of the ad, then one time you may see it, gives you like an extended clip of it or whatever if it runs back. So it was about this lady. I think she was baking a turkey, and there was a specific way that she used to do it. I think she used to like slice it in half or something and put it in the oven a certain way. And then I think it was her granddaughter that asked her, Grandma, why do you do that? And her answer was literally, I don't know. I saw my mom do it. And then I think the granddaughter ended up asking, her mom, the great grandma, like, well, Grandma, I asked Grandma, why you do this? And she said, you did it. And then the grandma was like, oh, I don't know, my mom did it. And then they ended up, I think, going to that grandma. And she ended up just saying, well, I did it because we didn't have a big enough pan. So it's just like, stuff like that. You just like, so I've been doing it this way my whole life. Not saying that is something wrong, but it's just like, it took, 3-4 generations for somebody to finally say, well, why do you do things this way? And I think that sometimes that's how our life can go. If you don't really start asking questions. And if you don't really dissect, well, why are you doing this? Why does this make sense? And sometimes you'll just figure it out. It's because I've seen that person do it, or this is what I've been taught, or this is what I learned, or this is how I go. But I feel like we have a choice.
Here's one for you. This is just what we do.
Or this is just how I am.
This is just how I am. It's like, no. You're choosing
to be,
You choose that. You have control over it. You have control over every piece of your body. Your mind, your soul, you have control. Now, whether you choose to use that control is different. I've had people say, well, I don't have no control. I just can't control it. Well, yes, if you keep saying you can't control it, then you won't be able to control it.
And you don't do anything that puts whatever it is in control, then no, you're not.
Do you ever take the time to dissect how you process information, and then do you have any coping skills? Have you when you said, okay, well, this is just how I act. Okay, so if you can consciously say this is how I act, that means you're making a choice to act that way. See, when you're not in control, you can't even acknowledge it. A lack of control cannot be acknowledged. So when you can acknowledge it, say
you're
that
aware of what's going on,
then you know
and
what's going on.
You're steady choosing to do this.
Correct. And you're just allowing. Here's the funny part. People talk about, I'm just free, and you just go the way that you feel, right? So what's interesting about that is that's freedom. What's interesting about it is actually that's the opposite of freedom. You actually become a slave.
You're making whatever,
you become a slave to your impulses. It's funny. I heard. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy Mike Todd. So I heard Mike Todd say something interesting. He said the best version of yourself is the disciplined version. And the reality is that being able to control your impulses makes you far more free than being a slave to them. Because when you go on for what you feel and just how you want to do it right now, I just don't feel like doing nothing. And I'm not saying you can't have moments where you just relax. That's different.
That is different.
But when you go off the handle every 5 seconds, when you're blowing up at everybody, when you're snapping, you just say whatever comes to your mind, all of those things right there, that's a lack of discipline. And honestly, that's immaturity, because the people who lack discipline and act that way are children. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying we can't be more childlike, have some fun, be free. I ain't saying that. I'm just saying that.
But it's certain, I think it's situational.
There's positive and negative. There's negative ways to where your impulses can destroy you. When you just think, oh, that's just the way I am. No, you're not. No, it's not. It's the way you choose to be.
And I think we, like you said, we wake up and we get a chance to decide. And I feel like even we can make our choices, and some things are just going to go how they're going to go. We can't control other situations, but we can control how we are in a situation. And if you walk around every day just letting the decisions make themselves, where did you think you were going to end up?
That's true.
I don't know. I get so frustrated with people who have that mindset. Like, I don't know. And I'm not saying that it's not okay to not know, because you can not know and still make a decision. But when you don't make a decision and you don't know, and you end up where you're at,
then you
now you need to know. You need to learn how to make decisions.
And the worst part about it is we live in a culture that tells you if that's the case, that could be absolutely the case, but then it's everybody else's fault. Like that's it's clearly because of X, Y, and Z that you didn't make a decision because you didn't know what's going on.
Or you were pressured, or you were defensive, or you couldn't think straight. No.
So
I think we're in a time where it's hard. I mean, because
so you could.
I think me and my best friend, we have a conversation all the time about accountability. And we have a lot of conversations, and I talked to him and I said, how do you hold people accountable who don't want that accountability? And I think that's a big issue too. Because when you get in a conducive environment where it's like, okay, my life is going this way because of you or because of him or because of her, and you don't see you, that's a person that lacks accountability. And like I told him, I said, you have to be able to put weight to that person and let them see, like, this is not me, it's you, without saying it, so harsh. But I feel like when you have a person who doesn't want accountability, they still don't see that. They don't see that as them. And it's like, how do you deal with people like that?
Because self-deception. I mean, you're deceiving yourself. And the reality is, the only thing that can break you from deceiving yourself is the truth. Now, people can tell you the truth, and you may not want to receive it. You don't hear it, you block it out.
Right.
But here's the thing: the truth will always surface.
Yeah.
The truth is going to come out at some point, and hopefully you get it from your friends, with people who care about you, as opposed to when you get it from a guy that you know good and well you shouldn't be with, and he turns around and puts you in the hospital.
Right, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? People have been telling you, you need to really chill out.
Right.
You need to calm down. You need to stop snapping all the time because not for any other reason other than I love you, and I don't want you to put yourself in a position where you can get hurt.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, no, it's them. They just be saying stuff and they just make me do this and they make me do that. And so they make you do it.
Right.
So the reality is that guess what? You give people power over you.
Yeah.
And so now you're a slave to everybody else. And so what happens is what happens is that when you allow yourself to be a slave to everybody else, you have no impulse control, none of those things. Then you have to face the consequences. Yeah. And that'll be the thing that wakes you up or it kills you.
Yeah.
And
I think not being funny, but in certain cases it kills people literally. Not literally, but it kills them because it's the consequences come and they still don't learn.
Yeah.
And it's like
until you end up, the reality is until you end up until
at the end of the day,
people, I hate to say it, some people will not get it until they on the other side of it.
Too late.
It's too late. I mean, the reality is, it's like I know a perfect example. There was a situation years ago that I remember where this young lady, she had a temper. Okay. She used to just snap on everybody. Hey, look, if you got a problem, you need to get some help, but you need to relax. Right. Because all this going off and doing all this kind of stuff. I remember one night we were out, and the reality is that she snapped on the wrong dude.
Oh man!
He knocked her out. That should never happen. I don't want anybody to experience that.
Right.
Men shouldn't put their hands on women ever. It's never okay for that to happen. However, on the flip side, and I say this to the camera guys, like I love my ladies. I love y'all, and I need you to understand something. Just because culturally men are not supposed to hit women, that does not give you a license to abuse the men, because everybody has a breaking point. Yeah. I'm telling you this. There's some really good dudes, respectful and strong, but they're still men.
And I think too with that, you have to think of, you may never know what that man had been dealing with. You may have
just like you dealing with something, he may be dealing with something.
He may have been verbally abused by women before. His mom, his aunt, his grandma.
He may have been physically abused. Yeah. People don't understand.
So when people do that, it's like he didn't mean to, but because of his past traumas, now you on the floor.
Right. You know what? It frustrates me. It frustrates me because I think our culture is so. It frustrates me to an extent because our culture is so women focused when it comes to a lot of these things. And nobody even thinks to acknowledge or even consider the fact that men get abused on a regular basis. Right. Mentally, emotionally, physically. We don't talk about the fact that men get sexually abused on a regular basis.
Yeah, they do.
Men get
just as much as women.
women, yes, men get abused sexually, get sexually harassed, all that stuff, just as much as women do. But men, we're supposed to just take it because we're men. You're supposed to be like, you're supposed to be good with that.
Yeah.
Strong. You're supposed to be okay when the woman, the girl in the office who got a crush on you, walks past you and grabs your butt or something like that.
Right.
You're supposed to just be like, oh, hey, how you doing?
Yeah,
but if I were to do that, I'd be under the prison. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to talk about the fact that we always talk about like rape culture. Men get raped too.
Yeah, they do.
I know women who have drugged men.
Really?
And that junk ain't cool.
Cool.
I know it's happened. Like
yeah.
Men, what's so funny? I read a thing years ago too. And this is just something different. I read a thing years ago and I still have to verify it. But they said that men lose 50% of their cognitive reasoning with every pair of cleavage. Like with cleavage, like if they see cleavage, their cognitive reasoning is dropped by like 50%, right? So I was thinking about this I was talking to some young ladies in a teenage group, whatever the case is. I was saying, I'm not saying that you can't dress nice or dress attractive or any of those things. I'm not saying you can't do that. But you also need to understand is that men are wired different. Yeah. So if you put the things that they like on display, their primal instincts begin to start to, the wheels start turning differently. Yeah. That's why you can have, it's like, and I hate to use this example because, okay, use a tiger, right? A tiger, for example. A tiger can be raised in captivity and be perfectly fine. You put that meat out there in front of him, all of a sudden he turns back into a tiger. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not excusing men who step beyond the boundary by any means. I think that is castration worthy. You know what I'm saying? But we do need to understand how each other works and how each other thinks and certain triggers and what gets people off and what gets people on. You know what I'm saying? And you can't just say, well, I just feel like doing this because I want to, and you just better get it together. And you need to adhere to the way I act in order for everything else to be okay.
Right.
That's not how that works. You know what I'm saying? It's just, like I said, we have a lot of mixes and matches and mess ups and craziness. And I'm not saying men don't have the same issues. Men manipulate women all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because women respond to verbal acuity, you know what I'm saying? So men can say the right things. Yeah. And women, the reality is the way women are wired.
Because sometimes we're wired by emotions.
Correct. Yeah, you're wired by emotion. And so men know to say those certain things that can manipulate the emotions of a woman and get her thinking, oh man, and guess what? My mother told me is emotions will cloud your judgment. Yeah. And frustration will make you lose focus. And so if you've been by yourself a long time or you've been chilling and everything ain't been working out, then you meet this dude who seems to have all the bells and whistles and he looks good and he talking the right stuff. Oh, well, I mean, it is no surprise that your defenses will go down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? On the flip side, if you, you can have a dude that you're trying to cope with your loneliness by filling it with a person.
Yeah.
And that person has the ability, has no concept. They can't even come close to filling the hole that you're missing. But you're gonna fill it with these people.
Right.
You got Monday, Tuesday, when you got all these little dudes and all these little girls, and you're trying to fill the emptiness that is in your soul. You don't have the satisfaction. You don't have the security. Most guys date a bunch of women for insecurity purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about, like, at least, I can't say most, but I know a lot of guys, you get with women because that's your rite of passage. That's what makes you a man.
Right.
You've been raised in a culture that tells you, like, oh, in order to be a man, I need to have a bunch of women. I need to have money. I need to have this. I need to have that. I need to have this. Because men do not have inherent value in society. And so because of that, we need to bring things, have things, do things in order for people to value us. And so I got a bunch of women, so I'm valuable. People, guys look at me like, that dude.
And you'll notice too, when they lose the women, when they lose the money, when they lose the car, they don't feel valuable. They don't feel worthy.
Nobody cares.
They feel like I gotta go back and get it.
Nobody cares. And
in all reality, nobody cares about that stuff.
Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares either way. That's the thing. You get all this material stuff. You get all these girls, and girls aren't materials. Let me correct that. But you get all of these women. You get all this money. You get all this kind of stuff. And the reality is, if someone were to be with you, They're not with you for you. They're with you for all the
what
things you have.
And then when you have nothing to that person,
You're
now
nothing.
it's like, bye.
Bye, see you.
Yeah.
And the thing about it,
what was the movie? Why Did I Get Married?
Yeah. Right,
Helen.
yeah.
And what was Charles?
Yeah. And none of those
she was
things.
gone when he was practically on the verge of dying.
Right.
So.
And none of those things. And none of those things matter. The material things that we value when it comes to men don't matter. Yeah. So, and a guy knows they don't matter. He just has them because I need them in order to matter. Yeah. And then when I don't have it,
like
nobody cares.
Sublines on a resume.
Right. Yeah. It's the action words.
And I've said that so many times because in the past I've dated guys that wanted the finer things.
Right.
And as I got older, I realized I'm like, that's just an insecurity because you don't have that confidence in yourself, you know, or maybe you did have it and somebody may have took it.
Well, okay, hold on. Pause. Pause. Let me put a pause on that.
Oh, okay.
and not to sound, contradictory or whatever the case is, but I do know, here's the thing, just like there are women who like nice things and high design and fashion, and there are men who do like those things.
Yeah, but
it's not always an insecurity. Not always.
Yeah. No, and I'm not saying that always when you like fine things, but when you have a person that has to have those things, like no matter what, even if they can't afford them, that's the person that's doing that out of insecurity. That's what I mean.
If you're doing it for the purpose.
Because there's nothing wrong with liking finding things, especially if you can afford it. But if you know that you can't afford it, and then you go get those things just to impress the community,
it's the difference. Yeah, it's the difference between valuing things and getting it for validation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like when you're buying a bunch of stuff, you're getting a bunch of things, living beyond your means and all that stuff, just so that you can feel validated. Now you're in a different world. We're in a different realm here.
Yeah.
It's like you see the people whose houses and everything are falling apart, but they got a brand new Benz out front.
And I would never understand that for the life of me. Like if you go to like the deepest areas and you see them cars and you see the house, you're like, wait a minute.
It's validation.
Your road is messed up. You got this
status.
nice 2022 Mercedes-Benz truck out here, and your house is a shack. Literally.
And guess what? The public sees the car.
Yeah.
The house is private.
Yeah.
So like I can escape from the house and go get in my car, drive around in the public into the world.
Yeah.
I look like I'm doing
they don't see
something.
they don't see your house.
They
see you, and then you probably got on to find the shoes, to find
clothes,
jewelry.
A lot of it is validation. A lot of it is we are trying to validate ourselves and fill the emptiness. The reality is an emptiness that really only God can fill.
Yeah.
And so we are trying to fill the hole with all these different things. Some people, here's the thing, some people fill the hole with information.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just need to know everything so I can feel like I matter, and I need to have the latest knowledge of here's one gossip. I need to have the latest
that's
tea.
That's the person that gets in the group and carries the conversation. You'll notice that too. They talk about everything and anything.
Right.
They know everything about everything and everybody.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, like knowing things, there's nothing wrong with knowing things.
Yeah.
But
sometimes some things people just don't care about.
Right.
And sometimes when people like that, they'll bring up anything to carry or to keep the attention on them. And it gets to a point where it's just like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like you never.
Yeah, if you're trying to get the attention, you're trying to draw the attention of the group. Then that's different. But I think here's the other thing though. There are times where you might just be interested in something.
Yeah.
Like I just like, ducks. I like ducks. I like talking about ducks. I like looking at ducks. And if you have to know your environment, because if you're in a group of people who
likes dogs,
right, and it's like, okay, ducks are cool, but and sometimes you have people who, unfortunately, because they have the wrong group of friends, they're stuck in this position where I want to share with you.
Yeah.
I want to be vulnerable and open with you. See, this is the problem. And this happens in relationships a lot. And this is the stuff that makes me want to throw people through windows. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what?
No, I'm just saying, like, guys get the short end of the stick on this side of things.
On what side of things?
in relationships when guys begin to let their hair down, for lack of better, for a statement purpose.
Get comfortable.
When they get comfortable and begin to share the things that they're thinking, feeling, or like, all of a sudden, in many cases, the relationship shifts. It happens.
No.
Yes, it does.
No.
I promise. And it happens more commonly. It happens more commonly when it's emotions, particularly.
Okay.
When a guy gets vulnerable with a young lady, and I'm not saying it's all cases, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's everybody, but I'm saying in many cases, women advocate for men to be more emotional, to share their feelings, to be more vulnerable, that kind of stuff. And then when a guy does finally open himself up and share the feelings and maybe even cry, something like that, it happens where all of a sudden she no longer respects him.
Because he was vulnerable?
I'm telling you. I know it's hard.
I don't know.
I'm telling you what happened. You like,
I have to agree to disagree. I think it does happen.
it
But I
doesn't
don't
happen.
think, if you give a percentage, would you say it's 50% of
It might be-
relationships that happen?
I would say it might be
Because
like,
you have some women that are out there actually looking for a man to be vulnerable.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I've seen it where there are women. I'm telling you, like, and you can put in the comments. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There is a shift that happens in some relationships. It his feelings and how he likes to look at butterflies, whatever the case is. It could be something light like that. See, look at you laughing right there. See, look at you laughing right there. See what I'm saying?
Butterflies.
What? See, what's wrong with that? Women can like butterflies.
Yeah, they can.
You see what I'm saying, America? You see what I'm saying? This is what
They can.
So if a guy, like, man, let me tell you.
But if don't use me as an example.
See, exactly. See what I'm saying?
Don't
Right
use me
there.
as an example. Because it's just like, something is just like, come on now.
What do you mean? Dudes are humans just like y'all.
Y'all
A dude got to be like. So imagine.
Yo,
See.
baby, I like to put it.
Yes, you see what I'm saying? You're laughing. You're literally laughing right now because I made that as an example, and that was something light.
That was something.
Believe it or not, I know guys who, believe it or not, I've been in groups with dudes, and we be like, yo, man, that's a beautiful scenery right there, bro. That's beautiful. We like that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's
So
There's nothing wrong.
Man, babe, you see that
if you
butterfly?
come home one day and you just like, listen, I want to talk to you.
see, you can't even have it. Wow,
I was-
you're proving my point
I want
right
to
here.
talk to you about this butterfly.
You're proving my point. Exactly. So a dude
But
comes
I feel like-
he finally
okay.
feels comfortable enough because he probably can't even talk about that with his homeboys sometimes.
Of course he can't, because they don't act on acting.
Exactly. So a guy can't like something that's stereotypically not the thing. He tells you, I really like monarch butterflies. And da-da-da-da-da. And he starts telling you about, like, you know how they wings and like the colors on them and junk. Like, I really like that. See what I'm saying? You're looking at him like, bro, this joke is crazy. Something wrong with him. He tripping.
Listen,
But yet if a woman, but
like
if you,
butterfly,
but if you came home and was like, babe, I saw this butterfly today. Da-da-da-da-da. It's got the colors and I like this. Because women, y'all are supposed to like that. It's okay for you to like that. But if
I'm
a
not
guy
saying
were to
no.
say that, you look at him like he might be gay.
no, I wouldn't look at him like he's gay. I think I would just be, for me, I think, in my opinion, and I'm going to speak for the women that would probably respond this way. I think that they would probably be more so surprised.
You can't even say that with a straight face.
I did. You was laughing.
I didn't say nothing. I
You
didn't say nothing. See, this is what I'm talking about, America. This is what I'm talking about right here. This is why
Listen,
guys don't tell nobody
I
nothing.
think, I'm being so serious, okay? On your side. If somebody does...
You can't even get the question out.
Because you made me laugh. I think women would be more so shocked.
Shocked.
Yes. I would say, let me speak for me. I can't speak for them.
Okay.
I would be shocked. And I'm not saying that me laughing is like a bad thing, but it's just like, because I would think that some women probably feel like men don't have that side. Because nowadays, a lot of men aren't being that vulnerable. So it's like, if you come home talking about a butterfly, I'm shocked.
Believe it or not, men are more So it's interesting is that men are actually just normal.
I know they're
They
normal.
have not the amount of expression and non-expression has not changed much.
Mm-hmm.
Women have decided to focus on it more or not.
Yeah.
But
I think too, you can't blame us the full way though, because a lot of men don't come home talking about no butterflies, even if they see a little cat.
Men were more vulnerable back in the old days, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Back in the warrior days, like back in the like archaic days, back in like the Vikings, these warrior cultures and all that stuff, they were very vulnerable. They were able to do that. They were able to say, they would cry next to each other and they would war.
I think it would just throw a lot of women off because you don't have a lot of men that does that.
You see what I'm saying? It would throw a lot of women off.
Yeah,
because
look at it like this. You have men that think, oh, I have to be strong. I have to be tough. I can't show my emotions. I can't tell her how I really feel. I can't be vulnerable with her. So I would say maybe 50%, 70% of men are like that. So when you have 70% or 50% of men that's like that and they get in relationships, they keep that unless they really 100% feel vulnerable with their girl.
Let me tell you something.
And one out of 10 men may be doing that.
Let me tell you something. It's not true. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you why. Because men, first of all, if a man just wants some companionship, he just want to get somebody that he's going to be that way with, he don't need to date you. I can just get you.
Right.
So men will go and, if I just want something to entertain me and not be vulnerable, nothing like that, yeah, I'll go do that. I don't need to get in a relationship or something. A man is not gonna put himself in a relationship. A real solid individual is not gonna put himself in a relationship that he is not willing and ready to be vulnerable. Men do not get in relationships if they are not prepared to be with this person, to be open with this person, and vulnerable person. I'm telling you. I'm telling
all
you.
Men don't.
Not all.
Some men get in relationships.
Nothing I say is going to be an absolute.
Right.
But most individuals who I know that are solid, I'm going to say solid individuals, good dudes, whatever the case is, are not going to get in a relationship.
That's a certain percentage. I'm going to say most.
Believe it or not, there's a lot more good men out there than we give credit for.
Yeah.
It's just like anything else. They put in front of you, all you see is the crazy people. All they show you. Let me tell you something. There are, and I'm not going to let y'all, I am not going to let y'all do my dudes like this.
No,
let
I'm
me
not
tell
going
you
to let you do us like that.
Believe it or not. And I'm not saying that all women are like that.
Because y'all walk around like, oh, I just got the world on my shoulders.
Do you know?
I'm bearing it all. I can't even get a break. And then you got, what's the quote y'all be saying? Oh, be his peace. Don't come home making stuff back. But then it's just like, when you do have that environment, half of these dudes ain't going home talking about, oh, I just saw the prettiest kitty cat run across the street. Or I just cried at seeing this Disney movie. A lot of y'all ain't doing that.
Even if that is the case, that shouldn't be a problem.
I never said it was a problem. I just said, me personally, I would be shocked. That's like the movie, what is the movie?
Because you put men in a stereotype of being that way. When a dude is with you.
No, some men are like that.
Some men are like that. I mean, I'm not the most expressive person. And I can admit that. I'm not the most.
So you're going to go home and talk about a butterfly?
I can. Absolutely. I should be able to.
Yeah, you should be able to.
I should have the safety and the confidence. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you can take this to the bank. Because let me tell you, I'm a guy, I know dudes, I know how this works. I'm telling you right now, you come home, if a dude is seriously trying to share something he liked with you, it's just like a kid. Like little boys, what do? They show you their toys.
Yeah.
Hey, look what I got, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this.
Right.
Little girls, they want to tell you stuff. They want to share stories with you and all that kind of stuff. Little boys show you their things. And so when a boy comes to you, a guy comes to you and say, hey, yo, hey man, I ain't gonna lie to you, I came home, I saw this cat. Right, and it was, man, it was pretty, bro. I like the way, like the you be look at that face right there. So you looking, so that right there.
How am I looking?
And guess the response, right? Guess the response. The dude is gonna do this. You can take this to the bank.
But I don't feel like you should take that.
I'm telling you, when a dude tries to,
I don't think you should take that
if a
personal.
dude express something that is different, right? He lets his hair down and actually tells you, honestly, I really like going to the park and looking at doggone ducks flying.
That's fine.
And you're
feel-
laughing about it,
No,
and immediately
I'm not.
dude's like, oh, that's funny.
No.
That's funny.
Listen, it's not funny. I'm
Oh
just
my
shocked.
God. You're just shocked. What? Wow.
And I think
It just caught me off guard.
Yes, it did.
If a woman came home and said,
because y'all expect that, y'all expect that out of us.
exactly, so now
Right.
you
And
just
we don't
proved my
expect
point.
that. We don't expect that out of y'all because y'all don't show that. I'm not gonna say all men.
You don't expect
Some
that
men
out of us
don't.
because you all have put men in a box. Y'all have put men in this box, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we aren't guilty of it. I'm not saying that we haven't put ourselves in many positions where it's like we don't express because culture has told us not to express.
Right.
From birth, we have been raised to where the only thing anybody cares about is what you can do or provide.
Right.
Period. What did Chris Rock say? The only thing that's unconditionally loved is women, children, and dogs. That's it. So
Right.
we get that. And so, yes, to an extent, we have put ourselves. But now the modern man is far more interested and far more expressive in who he is, what he does, the things that he enjoys.
Yeah.
And so when you come out and a man decides to be with you, first of all, people don't understand how big of a deal that is. Men don't just date people just to be dating people. Solid
Some
guys.
do, yeah.
Solid guys.
But
I'm saying
some do.
solid dudes don't just date people they're not gonna waste their time.
Right. Yeah.
I don't need you.
I agree with that.
If my goal is, for example, if my goal is sex, I don't need to get you for that.
anywhere,
I can
yeah.
go get that anywhere.
Right.
I'm not that. That's not my goal.
Right.
If my goal is just somebody to hang out with, I got a best friend for that. I got a homegirl for that. We can kick it.
Right.
I can go chill.
Right.
I don't care about, most men don't care about your career. They don't care about all that power couple. They don't care about none of that.
Yeah.
Men
I
don't
agree with
care
that.
about that. Like, and I'm not saying all men, because there are some that may do. There are some that might.
Yeah.
But for the most part, men don't care about that.
Yeah.
Men, am I attracted to you? Do you bring value to me in my life? And that doesn't mean you're my servant or my slave. It means, can I sit down and do like his peace and all that? Like, do you bring peace? Do you bring calm to the storm? Because I am constantly on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Can I come home and know that you shine my shield? Can I come home and know that you are there for me? Or better yet, and I'm not saying you can't work. I'm not saying you can't go do your thing and get your own. That's all great.
Right.
But at the end of the day,
When you
I don't
come
care about
on and
none of
talk
that.
about those butterflies.
right. I should be able, at the end of the day, I should be able to come home and be like, yo, babe, I seen this, I don't know what the term, I can't think of anything but a monarch, but like, babe, man, I ain't gonna lie, I saw the most beautiful bird today or something like that. I should be able to do that and not have to worry about being judged.
I don't think it's judgment. I think this is what I think. I think when you get ready to have that conversation in your mind, just say, this may be
He feels
different.
comfortable enough to do that.
Yeah, and if that person, may just be looking at you like, what in the world? It really may be what in the world, because maybe that has never happened to her before. Or maybe it's just the world, or maybe she was like, oh, he really trusted me with this, because I know if he did it, he wouldn't have came home talking about no butterfly. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't have brought it up, right?
Correct.
Right.
And then you laughed at him. Exactly. And then just like that, you can forget it. You ain't never gonna hear about another butterfly. You won't
It's
hear
not
about
that I
another
laughed at it.
butterfly for the rest of y'all's relationship.
But you can't do that. Because that was one time.
So what if you came home, babe, I saw that he like He
I'm
looked
a
at
laugh. Look, I'm goofy, so I'm a laugh. But I'm gonna say, what you laughing at?
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't take it personal, but that's me.
You just shocked me a little bit. Okay.
See? But that's the same thing. Because, and then I think for me, I would say, okay, well, maybe he's not used to that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is different. And
Or maybe you don't know him as good as you thought you did.
maybe.
I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, if depending on how deep you are in the relationship, I mean, you're always going to learn something new.
Right.
But if y'all are supposed to be deep in this relationship, y'all are talking about everything
But I
under
feel
the
like you
sun.
learn something new every day about a person, though. Because
You do.
you can change every. A person's mind changes, or it should change.
But would you have a problem if
What
the guy was like that?
No, and that's why I said for me, I would be shocked because I can't recall the time that I've ever, maybe like one time that a dude has ever like opened up to me about something that intimate or something that just off the wall.
Right.
But I would think that
Why is it off the wall?
Because it's not normal. I mean, I'm not gonna say
it's not normal.
No, I'm not gonna say it's not normal. I chose the right way.
You see what I'm saying? You see how the kids
I'm correcting myself though.
Right.
I'm not gonna say it's not normal. I'm gonna say abnormal because it's not something.
It's abnormal.
Yes, because
which is not normal.
It's not something that y'all do all the time though.
Like,
and if you go down that path of that never happened to me, and then when it does happen, it's like I don't really know how to respond.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? I'm being so serious though.
To be honest, babe, I would have never guessed that you were into that kind of thing, but that's really cool.
Right, but you still have to take the fact that maybe I'm just thrown off guard. Is it a bad thing because I would be thrown off guard with that?
I don't mind you being thrown off guard, but you gonna laugh about the house. You gonna laugh.
But you taking the laugh too personal.
You gonna laugh about the house.
You taking the laugh too personal.
I gave you one little personal, vulnerable thing, and you just laughed at it.
For me, I would definitely say, I wasn't expecting you to say that, but I can appreciate that. And then I would engage in conversation with that. Now, you might get a laugh or a smirk out of me because, like I said, I'm goofy. And that would have thrown me off guard. But I think that maybe instead of taking it personal, thinking like, oh, she think it's funny, or she think it's this or that, maybe that laugh is just me appreciating that. I think sometimes men, they take a lot of stuff personally. Because I think...
You think men should play video games?
I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with playing video games, but I don't think that it should be an all-day consistent thing because how are you being productive if you're not...
Well, if he's productive. I mean, he goes
to work. If he's productive,
he goes to work, he does
play the
thing,
game.
He
I don't have
comes
nothing wrong
home.
with that. I like to play the game. I like The Sims.
The Sims? The Sims?
Mm-hmm. The Sims. The new one.
That's still around?
You did not just say that. Yes. It's still around. I even have I still have my Xbox 360.
Who plays The Sims, though? Of all the things you could play, you play The Sims?
Are you not active on Facebook? People love The Sims.
No. I'm on Facebook. I ain't never seen nobody talk about The Sims.
Well, when you get back on there, type in search bar.
No.
The Sims.
Why would I
and you're going to see all the topics.
Why? Why would I do
See how you acting the way when I say The Sims? Let's talk about it. See how you reacting when I say The Sims? It's the same way I was reacting about the butterfly. See?
Exactly.
But I didn't take it personal.
What?
What? I did.
Yeah,
I asked questions. I didn't take it. I didn't off guard. Just be like, no, he didn't. Right. I asked questions.
I know. No, I did it on purpose. That's why I did that. But I can tell you one thing though. I do not know anybody who plays that much of The Sims though. That is a new thing.
What?
I'm surprised.
I love The Sims. And honestly, if I'm being real, when I play the game, I set a time because, like I said, I have a lot going on, school, work, my son.
Right.
So it's like I got too much going on to be sitting on the game all day. But I do get myself if my son is taking a nap and I've done my homework and I've done, if it's my day off, I'm like, cool, I'll get on the game for maybe an hour. But there's times where I've gone over and I'm like, dang, it's been like an hour and 10 minutes, and then I get off.
I didn't know you could play The Sims for an hour. Okay, I'll stop messing with you.
You see? What do you mean you didn't know you could play The Sims for an hour? What you think it was like 5 minutes? You get on there and get up. Did you know how much you could do on The Sims? You must go
Man, you can build stuff, right? Well, I mean, I don't know anything about The Sims.
So do you play video games?
No.
So that explains why you don't know anything about The Sims.
Correct. I did play video games when I was a kid, though. I played, I used to have a Sega Dreamcast.
Okay.
That was the last game. No, I had a GameCube.
I had a GameCube.
When I was younger.
I used to play Zelda.
No, I didn't play Zelda.
I ain't think that.
She was like, with your face, she was like, oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Who didn't play Zelda?
I had a buddy of mine that plays Zelda a lot. And when if I go over his crib, he was playing and I watched him play or whatever. I played video games, but I wasn't really good at video games like that.
Okay.
And I was more into art. I was more into music.
Mm-hmm.
I like going outside. And my grandparents, I grew up with my grandparents, and so they used to make me go outside. They'd be like, hey, so the sun's out.
Yeah.
Why aren't you? You know what I'm saying? I was like, all my buddies would be inside playing video games. But everybody's inside playing video games. And they were like, well, I guess you better use your imagination. And I was like, okay. I would just sit on the porch for hours. Just well,
here we are.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I have two older brothers though. So my oldest brother, he never really played games, but my second oldest, he loved it. Like I think we probably had like every game system, but I think that's how I started playing because he was always into. We would always play together, and then my little sister, she loves video games too. But I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that it should just be a point where it's like, okay, even if you don't really have anything to do that day, I don't think that it should be like a 24-hour thing. Like, how do you sit on the game all day? But I do know you have some gamers that make money and stuff like that. So
yeah, you got competitive. But even then, that's different because like competitive gaming, like there's a whole business and world behind it. It's not just I'm just playing video games all day.
So if it's that, then it's like, okay, that's different. But to just be like, okay, cool, I'm hopping the game for a little while, that's cool. But I don't feel like, even if you don't really have anything productive to do, I think that there's something you can still do.
Instead of playing video games.
Yeah. Like all day.
But if I don't have anything productive to do, if I've done everything.
So you say if you don't have anything to do, you're going to sit in the game all day? Like all day?
Why not?
Like from sun up to sundown?
Why can't he?
Why would he?
If he's done everything that he's supposed to.
You can't find one thing that you can do?
See, that's the problem. See that right there? That's what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
I just told you he's done everything that he needed to do. He's been productive. He got the business going. He's got his bills paid. He's taking care of the kids. Everybody's good. And so he decided to take a day where I'm going on the game all day today. And you're telling me you can't do something else?
Yeah, like because I feel like there's something. Like even if you let's say
to you.
Yeah.
But remember,
because I feel
it's very possible he's playing the game him playing the game has nothing to do with the game. How about that?
That's true.
I mean, many guys play the game as decompression.
Yeah, but I feel like you can't just. That's not a healthy way of dealing with issues.
Taking a day and just playing video games all day.
What's healthy about that? Because you're escaping your reality into a game.
I mean, what's healthy about eating McDonald's every day? I mean, people do that all the time. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm saying, and I'm not saying that you should make a habit of it. I'm just saying if a guy, I'm just throwing the. I hate saying the devil's advocate, but I'm just bringing the other perspective. If a guy is productive, he spends the rest of the week doing what he's supposed to do, takes care of the house, takes care of the kids, takes care of you, does what he's supposed to do, and he decides that, you know what, today is a video game day. I'm going to get on here.
Okay, so what if on that day I decide, okay, well, let's go out and do something. How are we going to go out and do something if you're in the game?
So what you're saying is that your decision in the house trumps his.
No, what I'm saying is I feel like at the end of the day, okay, let's say
what if he told you ahead of time? What if he told you that, hey, I just want you to know I'm going on a Saturday binge and I'm playing the game. I'm catching up for all my week's worth of gaming.
Then that's cool. I won't make no plans. But it's like, if this wasn't something that was actually discussed and you just woke up and said, I'm finna just play the game. And in my mind, maybe I feel like, okay, well, maybe this is the perfect day to go outside and have a picnic.
Did you tell him that?
I mean, let's just hypothetically say I didn't. But what if I had plans on telling him that?
But you did.
What if I did, though?
But you didn't.
Okay, let's change the hypothetical.
Oh, now it changes. Now it changes.
What if I did tell him that?
Thank you for listening. I hope you stay tuned for more episodes. Remember, being grateful makes you gorgeous.